could join us. Looks like we have a total of 61 participants here. Just wanted to introduce our panel today and also let everyone know that this webinar is going to be recorded and it's going to be available on the website in a couple of days. It takes us a little bit of time to go from the Zoom recordings to rendering that out and being able to upload that to our website. But this webinar, along with our board meetings, are available on our website as a link. And let me just do some quick introductions. So on my screen, to my left, I have David Parator. David Parator is our Chief of Student Services. He's our Chief Student Services Officer. He oversees our special education department and our categorical programs. He is also our direct liaison with the Snohomish County Health District. And so some of the questions that we have received and some of them that will be available afterwards in the FAQs have to do with how do we deal with COVID cases. And David is our, again, our direct link to the Snohomish County Health District for that. To my right on my screen, I have Jeff Presley, longtime and only principal of Frylands Elementary. He was core principal there. He's been there for a few years, and Jeff's here to report out on some of the experiences and examples of students in the buildings. Jeff has not only students in the building for our special education department and our kindergarten. Jeff, Frylands Elementary also supports our relationship with the YMCA, and the YMCA has been running a childcare facility in the gymnasium there at Frylands since the beginning of the school year. We also have Kim Whitworth. Kim Whitworth is our Chief Academic Officer. So Kim will be addressing instructional questions that we have received. And Keith Welton. Keith's the glue that keeps it all together for us. He's our Director of Technology. And we also have in support of our work today, Tamara Krejci. Tamara is a member of our communications team. So appreciate my team being here. We have questions that we've received. We've grouped those questions into themes, and then we have about, I think, 11 to 13 questions that we have that came out of the initial theme of that. And at this point, though, we're going to start off. We're going to get an update from Jeff and David about what it's like to have students in the building right now during the pandemic and following all of the safety protocols and procedures that we have in place, dictated by Labor and Industry, Department of Health, and OSPI.
Oh, great. Thanks, Dr. Blasco. First of all, veterans out there, I just want to say thanks for your service. We appreciate what you've done for us as a country and you're doing now. So thank you for that. Just so you know, the Y actually has been at our school. It's been our school for many years. And when we went out in March, it continued to have the daycare program for the community at our school. So they've been there since March, and then they were there all summer, and they continue to be at our school. They now have actually moved from our school to also Chain Lake. So again, to provide that partnership with the community for daycare. So we've been partnering with them. Part of this process, like today, we've been adding additional social distancing spots in the building over by where the YMCA is using those restrooms. I talk with them periodically about what they're doing with their program. I am the COVID supervisor. All the principals are the COVID supervisor for each school. And so it's important for us to be not only checking in with our students, but our staff and any other people that are in our building daily. So as far as for students, we, like Dr. Blasco said, we've had kids coming back. We've had special education students coming back in September, and then we've had our kindergarten since October 12th. We've also had some additional students that have needed some extra help that we've been providing those things as well. Every family that comes up, so everyone that comes, we do the attestation. So the attestation form is something filled out by staff, students, and any visitors that would come in. And those are done each day with the kids. So the kids are bringing them from home. Our teachers are giving them more than one, so they've got them at home. So if the attestation is filled out, the parents are letting us know if they're ready for school and that they don't have any symptoms of COVID. taking temperatures, checking to make sure they don't have, so a fever, a cough, and there's a list of items that are on that sheet. Then they bring the students. The students are all in masks when they come to the school. They're social distanced outside as they're lining up to come into the school. We have attestation set up. We'll provide more as first grade comes in as well. And then they come into the building. Every student has hand sanitizer that they do or washes their hands. So there's multiple times throughout the day that students are washing their hands at our school. So obviously when they first come in the building, they do so obviously when they are done using the restroom, after recess, before they have a snack. Our kindergarten have been having lunch, so they've been doing it before lunch, and then when they go home. As we move into this model by adding first grade, like I say, they all will have the attestations that they'll go through. They're all wearing masks. We help the kids with routines and what they should be doing, and as far as social distancing. At recess time, kids are in groups from their classroom. They go out with paraeducators in those groups, and they stay within those groups during that 15-minute recess. That will continue when first grade comes in. We do have our PE department they are outside undercover, and they're also providing practice in self-space, social distancing, and playing it in a fun game. And so our PE teacher is out there with the students. We've already planned, and we've already got our first graders ready to do that same thing with our PE department. When the kids are outside, they can wear masks or not. It's up to them. Again, we still so if families want their kids to wear masks the whole time, they can. They don't have to outside, but again, we still are practicing the social distancing. And if they have to use the restroom, they're washing their hands. And again, after they come in from recess, they're washing their hands or hand sanitizing. As far as when the kids come, besides the check-in stations, if a student is ill and needs to go to the health room, we have them come down. If we think that if there's symptoms of maybe that would be COVID related, we do have an isolation area for that student. We also are asking parents to give us contact information for a family member that could pick them up within 30 minutes. So if you're a parent that is further than that away, we'd want to have someone else who could pick up your child within that 30-minute time period. And so we ask for that information for current phone numbers for you and for a family that may need to pick up a student early. There's no one out on the playgrounds except for our kids and our staff members. The grounds are secure. Same within the buildings. We're not allowing parents and other people to be in the building. Anyone who comes in, like I say, has to fill out the attestation for that information. And then the other thing I would say is that if you look on the website, you can see our student schedule, and you can get an idea of what a student schedule would look like in a hybrid setting. And I'd be more than happy to spend some time talking with you about that. We talk about what our kids should bring to school each day, the supplies to be left at home, what things to come to school. We've sent out letters to our families in group A and B to let them know which group they would be in for first grade. And with that, we've also added information about recesses and information about what to bring, because we're expecting lunches as soon as first grade comes back. They will take lunches home with them. So we want to make sure that students do come to school with a snack, if you can, a healthy, easy to eat snack that doesn't require added things like spoons and things. So, crackers, goldfish, grapes, carrots, those kind of things for them. Time-wise, I want to make sure I give enough time to things. Just know the last thing is probably the restroom. The restroom is used by obviously multiple kids. We have paraeducators that monitor the restrooms that students use both at recess time and during the school day currently, and we'll continue to do that. We allow 2 students in our bathrooms at a time. Again, their masks are on, but 2 at a time, and the boys 2 at a time, and the girls, a person's there. We have the circles out on the tile, and the kids are waiting out there for their turn. They wash their hands and move on. So other schools have a little bit different because of their facilities where they're a one-on-one type of bathroom. Again, That would be obviously one student just going in at a time. So that's some information. I know David has some more that he wanted to share in relation to students that have been coming back into our building.
Thanks, Jeff. And we started the school year in the special education department. All of our IEP teams across the district, from developmental preschool up through our transitions program, which serves students 18 to 21 years old, really took a look at the data from March to June when we were first on the closure and examined which of their students struggled the most in the remote setting. And we had a rubric that they went through to really kind of lead that decision-making process. When they identified those students, we started bringing back very small groups of students on September 21st for our most needy students. In each of those classrooms, typically ranged anywhere from 3 hours a day to up to a full day, and typically an A/B type of model. Within each of these settings, all the classes had the social distancing. Because some of our students in our highly specialized programs struggle more with mask usage, all of our staff would have additional layers of PPE. So they would have KN95 mask. In addition, they would have a face shield, and we were also getting staff fit tested for N95 masks to really provide that high level of protection. We've expanded our services as we've gone on, starting from September 21st. This week, we are up to over 160 students, and there's students in every one of our buildings across the district, and have been very successful, even with some of these students that do struggle with the mask usage. While we've had to send home some students because of illness, we've had no illness due to COVID, and we've had 0 instances of needing to quarantine any of our special education programs. And we continue to build out some of those programs. So we brought in our highest need students to date, and our teams are continuing to look at additional students that are showing that they're struggling as we've come back in fall. So really looking at those students, making sure if they're not being successful in that remote setting, what level of in-person services is going to be required to help meet their needs. So I'll stop there and then pass it back to you, Justin.
Great, thank you both. I hope that gives a little bit of a snapshot of what is happening in our schools. And again, having visited all of the elementary kindergarten classrooms and many of our special education sites around the district, it is good to see our kids in our schools. So we're going to dive into the questions again. I think we have 11 questions, and for those questions that do not get addressed, I know that we're continuing to have questions dumped into the question section. That will be included on an FAQ. The frequently asked questions will be posted on the website, and in addition to that, there's going to be links there. And so as I begin to answer these questions, I just want to really encourage you all to go out and follow the links. We actually have this on our website. It was updated today, and really read the guidance from Snohomish County Health Districts. So the first question that I have is, why are we doing this when all the other districts are waiting until January? It feels risky to bring kids back right now before 2 big family gathering holidays. It doesn't feel safe for our kids or the staff. And so again, our memorandum of agreement with our teachers points to guidance from Snohomish County Health District as well as the Department of Health. We identified the quarter. So the decision to shift to the hybrid model was actually negotiated in September. We would re-examine where we are at and the guidance that we were receiving from the Snohomish County Health District. The decision to return to the classroom is made by our elected officials, our school board. And as their sole employee, their directive to me was to follow the guidance of the Snohomish County Health District, which at this point is allowing for a slow and methodical return to the schools for elementary age students. So where we are at with that, and this is also part of the conversations that have taken place, We initially thought about returning our first grade through third grade on November 16th after working with our labor partners and listening to the experiences of kindergarten teachers and from our principals. We understood the advantage of having our youngest learners have a transition period. And that was a very positive experience for both our kindergarten students and our kindergarten staff. So our paraeducators, our support staff, our teachers. What we heard from them is because these students had never been in school, it was really a unique experience because there were no other kids, very few other kids on campus. And so the kindergartners pretty much didn't have the stress of having other students there. And so they were able to transition very well into the environment. And obviously, listening to Principal Presley talk about all of the factors that need to be upheld. We need to teach students to be 6 feet away from each other. We need to teach students to wash their hands consistently throughout the day. We need to teach students to keep their masks on. We need to teach students things that are all associated with the parameters of the health protocols that we have in place. And for our youngest students, it was very advantageous. So based on that feedback and input, we determined that first grade individually alone would be the best step for moving into the hybrid model. So instead of bringing multiple grade levels back, some school districts are moving in that direction. We determined that bringing first grade back. We have guidance from October 20th. You will have access to a link to that guidance from Snohomish County Health District. At that time, the Snohomish County Health District was encouraging us to bring back our youngest learners. You'll see that language in the decision-making tree. And in addition, you'll see that language endorsed by Snohomish County Health District. And that's when we began to work on this plan, is to look forward. We communicated that with the school board. We communicated that with our labor partners. This is the feedback that was coming back from Snohomish County Health. And this is also embedded multiple places in our memorandum of agreement with our teachers union, is that we would use the guidance from Snohomish County Health District. Greg Burns, our safety and district risk manager, he's our director of safety and risk management. Greg he addressed the school board last evening. We will have that posted on our website as well. Greg does a great job of explaining the RCW, the legal authority that the Snohomish County Health Dr. Chris Spitters has in providing us the information we need to make an informed decision. And again, that decision is local. So to address the question, why are we doing this when other districts aren't? That is a local decision. That's based on the school board. That's what they are determining and is best for our students based on the information that is available to them. Again, there's districts, we have local districts, we have other districts. Arlington School District just determined that they are going to start to do 7th grade through 12th grade sports aligned to the decision-making tree. So small groups of students, no more than 6, that can meet for organized sports practices. Sultan School Board voted to do that as well last night. And so there are decisions that are being made locally. My point is that this is a local decision. It's based on the information that's provided to us by the Snohomish County Health District. All of this information, and I encourage all of you with these questions to really dig deep into that and to see those recommendations from the Health District. The criteria for moving between hybrid phases and stages, how did those align with the state phases and the county phases? So that does get very confusing when you're starting to talk about phases. So there's the safe return, the governor's plan. The guidance that we are driving off of is the decision-making tree for returning to in-person learning. And again, there's a link to that document. That is the document that is referenced in the October 20th guidance from Snohomish County Health District. We had a meeting today. We're having weekly meetings with Snohomish County Health District. Again, Dr. Spitters today to a group of public school superintendents and private schools from throughout Snohomish County. Again, the guidance is to continue forward with the slow integration of elementary students into hybrid cohorted learning models. You'll also see reference to it's the Institute of Disease Modeling, the IDM. The Department of Health had a press release last Thursday releasing the results from the IDM. What that demonstrated, this is a Bill and Melinda Gates funded organization that studies diseases all over the world and probably has some supercomputer in some room in University of Washington. Their model demonstrated that there is a negligible difference for hybrid learning models when compared to remote learning models. As Dr. Chris Spitter says, the empirical evidence continues to demonstrate that schools are not contributing to community cases of COVID. So yes, are the community cases of COVID rising? Yes. And at this point, and from the research that our medical professionals are guiding us by, the rise in community-based transmission is not taking place in our schools. And the best that I can tell you is that's why Dr. Spitters has continued to endorse the shift to in-person learning, especially for our farthest from educational justice, our homeless students, our students with special needs, and our youngest students. And what Dr. Spitters talked about today, again, is there's a different rate of contagion between our youngest students and our older students. You will see in the guidance, they are not endorsing 6th through 12th grades to start now. And I know that's a question that we're coming up. But again, the guidance from Snohomish County is to focus on our youngest learners. They've identified our youngest learners initially as K3 for those schools that have successfully brought kindergarten through 3rd grade back. He's actually endorsing them, bringing the rest of elementaries up to 5th grade to the school districts that have those in place. Stanwood Camino is one of those places. Sultan is one of those places, and Arlington plans to continue to watch that. We will use the guidance from October 20th. The guidance suggests bringing groups of students back and waiting 3 weeks and determining what is our experience in that 3 weeks. And again, David is our partner with Snohomish County Health District. We will be working in partnership. If there are isolated cases of COVID, we will be working with them to determine what their advice is for our best steps forward. And we'll continue to work in collaboration and partnership with Snohomish County Health District. Here's the key point. If guidance changes from what it is now from the Snohomish County Health District, if guidance changes and Dr. Spitter says, you know, this is not working well, we need to shut down schools, we will shut down schools and return to the remote setting. Our teachers have shifted that very well. I'm proud of the work they've done. We have a recent survey that we're working through that data. We hope to have that very soon and point that outward so you can see the results of that data very soon. But from that survey, it's reported that the experience that people had in the spring compared to the experience that kids are having now, much better experiences now for kids than initially when we initially started this back in March. Recent concerns on social media and local news that teachers are concerned about returning to the classroom due to not feeling fully prepared for their own safety and the students' lack of access to personal protective equipment, proper training, adequate ventilation, and appropriate social distancing measure. Can you tell me in detail what you have done to address these concerns? When you look at the decision-making tree for returning to in-person, there is actually a graphic. So there's about 3 pages of text, and then there's a graphic. In the center of that graphic are all of the things that we have had to do to comply with Department of Health, Labor and Industry, and Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction in order to ensure that our plans include all of those components of being able to return back safely. When I look at that list and that question, all of those things are being asked are addressed in our safety plans. Principal Presley talked about the individual safety plan for Frylands Elementary School. Our communications team posted each of those individual school plans on the district website today. So you have access now to the individual plans, just as our teachers have had access, our paraeducators and our secretaries have had access to that for weeks now. Our safety plan was initially included, the initial version of our safety plan was included in our memorandum of agreement that was signed by the MEA on September 4th. So we are fortunate that we have a director of safety and risk management who guides us in these decisions. One of the decisions that we varied from the Labor and Industry and Department of Health was there was a shift, and that shift had to do with classrooms. Initially, classrooms were identified as medium risk occupational hazards for COVID transmission. The OSPI, Labor and Industries, and Department of Health shifted that to a low risk of transmission early on in this process. As a district, one of the things that we looked at was carefully examining that guidance. It suggested that that's when teachers and staff, other staff members, paraeducators, can maintain a 6-foot distance consistently throughout the day when teaching our kids. I'm a former first grade teacher. I'm in elementary. My bachelor's degree is elementary education. Jeff and I and our other principals, it's challenging to think about teaching a class and maintaining 6-foot social distancing from kids. We just did not think that that passed the blush test, the logic test. And so we aligned our PPE with medium risk, meaning that we have KN95 masks. Initial purchase was 63,500 masks. We have those available for all staff. In addition, medium risk also identifies the 3-ply examination masks. So those are the commonly used masks at medical offices. We also are providing access to those masks for some of the more specialized areas of the school and the team that David supervises. We have purchased specialized masks called Badger masks, which were developed at the University of Wisconsin, thus the Badger designation, which are a face shield with a cloth shroud around the bottom. And many of David's personnel are wearing double PPE. So that is a KN95 mask and a face shield for those, for serving those students that just simply, you're going to be in a lot more close contact with them and probably reflects more of a high risk of transmission than a medium risk. And so we've done that as a district. All of our ventilation systems have been maxed in addition to changing of the filter media of all of our HVAC systems throughout the school district. We are installing HEPA filters in all of our staff rooms. That's one of the common areas that we really couldn't, while we've increased the draws, and as such, school facilities, we have higher rates of air return than other locations. So there is a minimum of 4 air exchanges per hour that is legally required. I'm kind of venturing outside of my expertise area. I don't have my operations people here with me today, but we have increased those rates of fresh air. So the fresh air circulation rate has been increased in the classrooms. In addition, for classrooms that have the ability to open windows, that's encouraged through this guidance as well. And the social distancing measures, we have specifically designed our classrooms to maintain 6-foot 6-foot physical distancing for when students are in their desks. It's a change to teaching practice. We're not able to have the carpet. We're not able to gather students for our read alouds as we have, and we've been doing a lot of professional development with our teachers over the last few years. And it definitely is a modification for the classroom that we know, but there's definite benefits to having our students in person and having the opportunity to have that. The lack of PPE is simply, it's simply false. We have adequate amounts of PPE. As I said, the initial order was over 60,000 KN95 masks. I read an email today that we have used, oh, David, I'm not going to draw that number. A few thousand of those, maybe 4,000 of those. We had an update on that. So, which means that we still have over 50,000 KN95 masks available for our instructional staff. We have child-sized masks for students that may show up to school without masks or something happens to their mask during the day. We ordered tens of thousands of child-size safety masks as well, in addition to gallons and gallons and gallons of hand sanitizer. So when there is not access to sinks, the best method is soap and water, and we've heard that. In addition to that, our facilities department has provided squirt bottles, so spray bottles to every school with, and if classroom-based, and for soap and water. And the state's hygienist, who happens to be a board member from Lake Washington School District, Nancy Bernard, identifies soap and water as one of the most effective ways and means of cleaning. So there is a lot going on with that. Not necessarily completely directly under my purview, but we definitely have a strong operations department that has managed both our PPE training, the adequate ventilation. All of that has been taking place and has prepared us for our first grade integration on Monday. The next question number 4, why is it the temperature of every student are not taken every day? And I'm going to turn this over to David.
Remember to unmute myself. And like Jeff said at the beginning, each day students and staff come to school, we're required to do an attestation, which is a health screening. And so some of the things that we're required to screen each day for every student and every staff member is a screening of symptoms, which would include things like a fever above 100.4, cough, shortness of breath, fatigue, headache, sore throat, congestion, nausea, or diarrhea. And then also some additional questions about if this person has been in contact with a confirmed case of COVID, whether they've had COVID virus or whether they've been directed to stay home. And so then the Department of Health gives districts 3 options for doing those attestations. One is to do a home screen method, which the parents review all of those 4 questions above and verify that the student does not have those symptoms. Second method would be the on-site screening method, where school staff is doing the checking of students each day of symptoms. And then there's a combination method where it's a periodic attestation, but then also includes daily screenings. Our district has opted to use the home health screening methods, which allows parents to verify that the student is healthy to attend that day. A couple benefits of doing it this way is one of the big benefits of having parents do the attestation before students, we have a lot of students that ride the bus. And so this allows us to do that health screening before we have students getting on the bus, potentially ill, and then spreading it on the bus and them getting to school and then not having a way home. Another benefit is especially if you consider the populations that of students that we're bringing back first, our highest need students as well as our youngest learners, to be doing some of those questions of some of those questions wouldn't necessarily give us very valid answers when you're asking a 5-year-old if they've been in contact with somebody who's been COVID positive. So it allows us to do that additional screening. For students that do, like our walkers who do show up to school without a attestation, then we do the on-site health screening methods, which would include a temperature check, and then either one of our nurses or one of the people in our health rooms doing a screening check. If any student or staff fails those attestations, then they would not be able to attend school that day. Additionally, we have our nurses on site at our different schools. And if a student does have a successful attestation, but then they do show symptoms, we do move those students into an isolation area where we do some additional screening. There's specific positive screening protocols from the Snohomish Health Department that we would follow as far as that directs us then whether the student needs to go home, and then there's a return to school flow chart as far as for when they can safely come back to school. So a lot of thought goes into those methods, and the choice that we did, it allows us to be open school most efficiently and safely. Another question that was that there was several questions about was around students have recess and they have mask-free the option of doing a mask-free recess, and does that go against the state mandate for mask wearing? And that from the Centers for Disease and Control, the CDC, they have specific situations where masks are recommended or masks may be considered. And for our students, when they're in building and within that when in those closer confined areas, they absolutely have to wear masks 100% of the time, as do the staff. When they go out to recess, because the social distancing helps protect students at recess or in physical education class, they are able to have that mask-free time. Now, if they were having a recess inside, that would be a different answer. They would then be having to wear the mask inside. It's really in those larger areas where there's more ventilation and air exchange in that outdoor setting. They still are doing social distancing out there, and so it gives them an opportunity to get some fresh air and have that mask break, and that's been successful. And as Jeff mentioned, if a parent is opting for their student to have the mask on 100% of the day, the schools are supporting that request. So working with you on that, and it's been, I've got to say, going from the various different schools, seeing our kindergarten classes as well as our special programs. The students of all ages from preschool up through 21 have been doing a really great job of mask wearing, and I think it's that was initially a concern early on, was how our youngest learners were going to do, and they've actually been they've shown that with that expectation, this is their normal. They do a really good job with that.
Thank you, David. So the next two questions are mine. Number 6 is, what if I don't want my child to return to in-person learning, and what are my options? The short answer to that is we have 3 things in our district that would serve your needs if you are not ready to come back in person. The first is the Monroe Virtual Learning Academy, and that serves kids in grades kindergarten through 12th grade. We have Sky Valley Educational Center. They also serve kids in kindergarten through 12th grade. We have Leaders in Learning as well, and they serve kids in grades 9 through 12. I'm going to talk a little bit more about these options and how to get there and fold that into the next question. And the next question has a few different parts. So it is, how does the transfer to MVLA work if it's only considered at the end of the quarter, but we won't know by November 9th if our son's class 3rd grade will be returning? Why do we have to enroll kids in MVLA if we don't think it's safe to return to school? And I see other districts are able to support in-person learning and online at the same time. One of the things that I think is really important to help people understand how we're moving from MVLA to schools and back and forth, and what we can do and what are some of the constraints that we have, is to help people understand a little bit about our process. So every school year in the spring, we estimate the number of students who are going to be in classrooms. We divide that by the number of how many students can be in a classroom, and then we staff with that estimation. So we look at class sizes in September and October, and we adjust students and teachers to ensure our class sizes are balanced, because what we know is class size matters. And so if you have too many kids in the classroom, the education level is not as high as it could be, and we want to make sure that we're not overloading teachers. Over the summer, we offered families who had concerns about returning to the school, building opportunity to choose to engage in our online learning for the year through Monroe Virtual Learning Academy. We counted the number of students who were requesting to be in that, divided by the number of students we allow in a classroom. And in this case, for kindergarten, we were looking at anywhere from 14 to 17, depending on the school. And then we staffed our schools and MVLA accordingly. We know that circumstances change for families, and we're committed to working with you to come up with a solution that works for your family. If you do not want your child to return to in-person learning, you have a few options, and I talked about that earlier: MVLA, Sky Valley Educational Center, and Leaders in Learning. If you want to transfer your students to MVLA, so this part of it is, when we started MVLA at the beginning of the year, we assigned a specific number of staff members to the program based on the students enrolled and requested at that time. So to minimize the amount of disruption to classrooms as students are entering and leaving a model, we've identified quarters and semesters as time to look at transfer requests and the possibility that we have to adjust staffing. And we're coming to the end of that, which is our first quarter. In an effort to accommodate changes to and from MVLA that families may want to make at this time, we're asking that families fill out a transfer request that can be found on the Monroe School District website. And we're asking that you get this information to us by November 20th. So that is a week from this coming Friday. This is going to allow us time to review class sizes and adjust staffing to accommodate transfers. What we want to do is we want to balance the needs of each and every family while providing the most stability for students and teachers in the classroom. Requests will be approved if we can maintain appropriate class size and student to staff ratios. This means that some students are placed on a wait list until there is an opening. It might be that if enough families want to make a change at that point, we can consider adjusting students and teachers in our schools and in MVLA. This is going to require a deeper discussion with staff and families about their capacity to change teachers and cohorts, et cetera, in the middle of a school year. So Sky Valley Educational Center, if you want to transfer to Sky Valley for K-12 or Leaders in Learning for grades 9-12, go to their websites to review their enrollment application process. It's a little bit different than what we have for our enrollment in MVLA. So Sky Valley Educational Centers has three different things that you can, or three different programs that you can look at. The first is the School to Go K-8, which is a pre-packaged curriculum, pacing guides, and teacher to check in with Zoom once a week. There's also personalized learning for grades 6 through 12, which is one-on-one teacher-student relationships with the ability to meet with once a week in person to review assignments and stuff. And the other thing that Sky Valley does really, really well is a parent partnership. And so that's where parents and students are engaged on campus, learning together and participating in that community. Leaders in Learning offers an in-person and distance learning options for students in grades 9 through 12. And it's located on the Monroe High School campus, which gives kids the opportunity to engage in that really small learning experience, but also to have access to all of the opportunities that are at Monroe High School. So another piece to this was, why aren't we having our teachers teach some kids in person and some kids at home? So as to asking teachers to plan, provide instruction, and monitor learning for students in two different models, so in person and hybrid and at home, we've determined that this will not provide the most equitable and rigorous experience for each of our students, as teachers and students have to split their time and focus. So we're going to be looking at continuing with teachers either being a part of our online experience for kids through MVLA, or to be with their teachers and their colleagues in their building, teaching kids as they're coming back in the hybrid model.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, David. Next question. What about the middle school and high school students? Can't you start with the youngest grades in each building? As I suggested earlier, the guidance from Snohomish County Health District is very clear on the transition to the middle school and the high school right now. The reason for that, as we've heard from Dr. Spitters, is that there is evidence of a different transmission rate between our older students and our youngest students. And so they're more confident in our opening the elementary schools first, and limiting that opening of our secondary schools until later. And so that is something that has been consistent since the October 20th, is they're not necessarily as encouraging for our older students. The next question talks about, rather than bringing more elementary kids, well, what about the students that are really struggling? Each of our secondary schools has a plan for this. And we have been closely working with the schools to determine how to make those apply to all of our safety protocols and our plans. Again, our Director of Safety and Risk Management, Greg Burns, has been working with principals. Terry Cheshire at Park Place. He's been working with Brett Willey up at the high school. All of our secondary schools have identified students that this is not working for. And, to be honest and frank, there are more F grades in our student population in the secondary level than we've ever experienced as a school system. And so just judging by that result, and some of you parents on this call right now could be experiencing that exact thing based on the numbers of failing classes that we have from our students. And so we do have some latitude to serve our what has been identified as our farthest from educational justice. And when you look at a situation like that, it's easy to label students that are in that situation as such. We also continue to have some challenges with students connecting to the internet. And while we have worked very hard to get families of our free and reduced meal families connected to the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. They have a program now that directly pays for high-speed internet up until through the month of June. Keith and his crew, along with our student information systems personnel, have been working very diligently to get as many of our free and reduced families as possible connected to that. You think about Frank Wagner Elementary, almost 70% of the students that we serve are free and reduced students. And so we've been working hard to bridge that gap. But we know that there's still challenges out there where there's still areas of the 80 plus square foot or square mile radius or land area of Monroe School District. There are areas that simply don't have access to high-speed internet. And so we're working through those problems. And we have continued meetings with our labor groups to talk about, what does that look like next? And to talk through those safety plans and understand what that could potentially be. But again, guidance from the Snohomish County Health District is very clear that shifting to the hybrid model at the secondary level in Snohomish County at this point is not advised. And so that we are following that guidance, we are heeding that guidance, and at this point, we are not planning to return 6 through 12 in a hybrid model. But again, we do have plans underway that are addressing some of those neediest students that we have, students that are demonstrating that they're not being successful in the current remote model. And we're working on ways that we can bring them into our schools and serve them in isolated groups in kind of a modified hybrid. So just to be able to monitor that size. Number 10, the question number 10 is going to be David and I that are going to talk to you about this. Why is the district not notifying families when there are classrooms that are on quarantine? The district could be more forthcoming with the information that has already happened. If that information was being readily shared with our district families, then parents would have a better idea on how this process of bringing students back is working out. So our kindergarten, first of all, we have to be very careful with the HIPAA laws, which are the health privacy laws. And additionally, we are working through the construct that we have always worked through. So those individual families who are impacted by certain communicable diseases, again, David is our direct contact with Snohomish County Health District. And in his role, he deals with lice outbreaks, he deals with chickenpox outbreaks, foot and mouth disease. David, I'm trying to go through a list of things that have landed on your desk.
Making me itch my head.
Yeah, and those things happen in our classrooms. And when they happen in those classrooms, those specific classrooms are notified of that circumstance. We have not changed that practice in the COVID pandemic. And part of that has to do with, again, the HIPAA laws that bind us to protect medical information. We know, and our labor group, MEA, has held up some examples of other districts that have some dashboards. At this point, we are not considering a dashboard. We are sticking to the plan that has been in place for years that David oversees. I'm going to let him talk a little bit about how that works from his role as our conduit to the Snohomish County Health District.
Sure, and just kind of the way the process goes, if we have any suspected cases, is the building principal calls me and lets me know what the situation is, where we have either a student that's symptomatic or if we've been notified that there's been a close contact of somebody with COVID or a COVID positive person. My next step is then I call Snohomish Health District directly, and then I get one of the public health nurses where we talk through the situation, the setting that the students may have been exposed or staff may have been exposed, the kind of the timeline that we're dealing with. Was the exposure at home? Was the exposure on a bus? Was the exposure in the classroom? Based off of that, then the health district does direct me if we do need to do a quarantining of a classroom or a group of students. They tell me how wide that quarantine needs to be. I take the direction from them, and then the people that are directly notified then are everybody that's been identified as either possibly being exposed to a close contact to somebody with COVID or a positive COVID person. And as Justin was saying, that is for the confidentiality protection of our students and staff, especially as we have started with small groups of students. If a more general communication went out, it would be pretty easy to identify which teacher, which students are potentially the affected students. So that is why there's that protection put in place. I can tell you that if your child has been directly exposed or in close contact, you would absolutely be notified first by the district, and then the health department does do follow-up contact tracing, where then they take the lead and follow up with families as well, as far as answering any questions, as well as directing how long the students would be out. So do be confident that if you have not heard something from the school or from the health department, that means that you have not, your student or you have not been in a situation that would be considered a possible contagious condition or setting.
Thank you, David. We're not going to be able to get through all of the questions that we had, but just jumping on to this conversation about COVID cases, because it has been one of the questions that has been seated in the Q&A section, is one of the questions is, have we had to quarantine classrooms? And the answer to that is yes. I'm going to be careful, and David's watching me. We did have one kindergarten classroom. I apologize. We had 2 kindergarten classrooms that have had to be quarantined. One of those kindergarten classrooms was based on a student circumstance that was traced back to their family. We quarantined that classroom. No other students were infected by COVID. Neither the paraeducator nor the teacher in that classroom were infected by COVID. The principal of that building was not infected by COVID. And so for that specific case, we can say a COVID outbreak, by the way, if when working through the Department of Health's standards, an outbreak is 2 cases that are linked in our schools will be considered an outbreak. So if, for example, that student came to school and COVID was spread to another student, that would have been an identified COVID outbreak in Monroe schools. I can tell you there have been no COVID outbreaks in Monroe schools with the over 300 students that we have had. So including our kindergarten, including our students in special programs, there have been 0 COVID outbreaks in Monroe School District to this time. Dr. Spitters is clear. Are we going to have COVID cases in our schools? Yes, yes. With the community levels that they're at, we will experience COVID cases, and we have protocols and plans in place to deal with those, to quarantine, which is why we're starting with the hybrid model. The hybrid model and cohorts is designed to limit the potential spread of COVID, to be able to isolate down to a small group of students. As I said, we had 2 incidents of COVID. The other circumstance was at a different school, and the COVID situation had to do with one of our employees' children. So it was not a student in the classroom, but we quarantined the classroom based on the judgment of Snohomish County Health District and the partnership that exists there. And the advice was to err on caution and to quarantine that classroom as well. Again, there was no COVID spread. I believe, well, I'm not going to share that other information, but again, the point of that was we have had to quarantine 2 classrooms, kindergarten classrooms, since we started serving kindergarten students. And again, for both of those situations, there was not a COVID spread. There was not an outbreak in the terms of Snohomish County Health District. So in closing, again, thank you very much for your attendance here in our question and answer. We have a Spanish webinar next, starting here in just a couple of minutes, that we're shifting over to. All of the questions are going to be captured in our Q&A. We're going to capture that, and we will have a frequently asked questions that will be linked to our website. Again, I would encourage each of you to dive deep into the recommendation from Snohomish County Health District. For those of you that might have joined late, again, in this last couple of minutes, our meeting with Dr. Spitters today, Dr. Spitters continues to hold up his endorsement of shifting to a hybrid cohort-based elementary instruction model in Snohomish County. And again, that is a locally based decision, and our school board of directors, their meeting was last evening, and the board of directors continues to endorse us moving forward, aligning our practice for our elementary students with the guidance that we've received from Snohomish County Health District. So again, I appreciate all of you. Shout out to all of our teachers, all of our staff members, our secretaries, our principals, our leaders, all of us here in Monroe School District. These are challenging times. Conducting public school in a pandemic, we are concerned about all of the safety of everyone involved in Monroe schools, and are confident that the guidance from Snohomish County Health District, with the empirical evidence that's available to us, when we consistently apply our safety measures, we can significantly reduce the risk of COVID spread in our schools, and the benefits to our students. It is a risk-reward benefit, and we talked about that a lot last night. Again, Director Greg Burns, Safety and Risk Management, explained how we got to this decision very well last night, and that additionally is going to be posted to our website very soon. Keith and Tamara are working on that and getting that on there. I would encourage you to listen to Greg. He is our frontline person that deals directly with Snohomish County Health District, Labor and Industries, Department of Health, and specifically on the safety measures that we have in our schools. And he is randomly auditing our schools to ensure compliance and the upholding of our safety plans in schools. Again, thank you very much. We appreciate you. We appreciate your children, and we look forward to hopefully very soon seeing you. IRL is the language that my kids, my college age kids, and I send back and forth. It's going to be good to see you in real life in 3 dimensions. Be well. Thank you. And thank you for your attendance. We appreciate it.